How do you replace the best running back in the Southeastern Conference? You build the best running back room in the Southeastern Conference, and they're not done yet.
You are Locked On Ole Miss, your daily podcast on the Ole Miss Rebels. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hi, I'm Stephen Willis, a former staff member at Ole Miss and a 10-year veteran member of the national media with Yahoo Sports. Thank you very much for tuning in. Today on the show, we talk about Henry Parrish Jr. committing to Ole Miss to join Jacory, Croskey, Merritt as part of creating the best running back room in the Southeastern Conference, even after losing Quinshon Judkins. How does all of this running back movement affect Kedrick Reescano and Akylin Dear, and why is Ole Miss being really intentional with who they recruit because of that? And we get to know Jacory Hobson, the elite recruiting prospect that just committed this week out of Lake Cormorant. This is the Locked On Ole Miss podcast, your daily podcast on the Ole Miss Rebels, part of the our Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We're free and available on all the podcast apps and on YouTube. Thank you very much for making Locked On Ole Miss your first listen every day, and a special hello to the everydayers who make the show what it is. There's still time to join the Grove Collective and help Ole Miss sports moving forward. Go to thegrovecollective.com/march to victory, I guess, or thegrovecollective.com and join today. As little as $20 a month. You will not regret that as well. Today's episode is brought to you by Monopoly Go. I admit it, I have a competitive side, and as a big fan of Monopoly Go, the mobile hit twist on the classic Monopoly. So join your friends and download Monopoly Go now, free on the App Store and Google Play. So Henry Parrish Jr. committed to Ole Miss, joining Jacory, Croskey, Merritt in committing to Ole Miss. So it's been a big weekend in the transfer portal for Lane Kiffin and Ole Miss football. But the one thing that's interesting is how everything's kind of coming into focus of what Ole Miss's transfer portal strategy is. And that is, they went into this trying to figure out what is the best way to replace Quinshon Judkins, the running back that was the best running back in the Southeastern Conference that went to the Ohio State Buckeyes in the January transfer window. How do you replace that? You have a really good running back, or a really talented running back that everybody really likes in Kedrick Reescano. And we're going to talk about how all of this affects him in the second segment. But Ole Miss going into this, how are they going to handle it? They got a commitment from Logan Diggs, who tore his ACL in January, which means this season is potentially a lost year from the jump. So I'm not even going to factor in Logan Diggs with what I'm saying, if that makes sense. You have Ulysses Bentley IV, who is basically a plus version of Jerry Neely. I've said that over and over and over again. He's a plus Jerry Neely. He's a little bit injury prone. You can probably count on him for about 100 carries. Last season, Quinshon Judkins had nearly 300 carries, about 1,200 yards, and about 15 touchdowns. I started talking about this in January and early in the early transfer portal window about how Ole Miss was going to attack replacing Quinshon Judkins. And honestly, I feel a little bit vindicated because Ole Miss is doing just that right now. And that is, you weren't trying to replace the best running back in the Southeastern Conference. You were trying to replace the aggregate of that running back. You're not going to find one player that could give you 1,200 yards and 300 carries and 15 touchdowns with the inside running ability, the outside speed, all of the stuff that Quinshon could give. You are likely not going to find that in the transfer portal window. So Ole Miss went about an aggregate plan. Jacory, Croskey, Merritt out of New Mexico. This is a guy that was very successful. It's somebody that you can probably count on for 120, 130 carries over the season. You can expect him to put up decent numbers. And the goal is, Ole Miss is probably going to recruit 3 backs that can give them 300 carries, 1,300 yards, and 15, 16 touchdowns over the course of the season. Jacory Croskey Merritt is somebody from Birmingham. He went to Alabama State that can perform that task. He's a good little running back. He had multiple 200-yard games a year ago at the G5 level. Ole Miss, like I said, got a commitment from Henry Parrish Jr. He's another one you can count on for 100 to 120 carries. Honestly, really similar to the numbers you see here is about what you can expect from Henry Parrish Jr. And the one thing that everybody needs to keep in mind about him, Alex Dono from Locked On Canes had this to say.
Running back Henry Parrish Jr. is in the transfer portal. I am Alex Dono from Locked On Canes, and for the past 2 seasons, Miami's most consistent running back has been Henry Parrish Jr., led the Hurricanes in rushing in 2023 with 625 yards and 6 touchdowns on 100 carries, meaning he averaged 6.3 yards per carry this past season, really feasting behind Miami's excellent offensive line. And Parrish did get passed in the depth chart late in the season by rising true freshman Mark Fletcher last year. So Fletcher, when he's healthy again from an injury he suffered in the bowl game, is presumably Miami's starter. Also, Miami has been shopping for featured backs in the transfer portal, which probably was part of the reason why Parrish was prompted to exit. But I'll tell you, Henry Parrish's next team is getting a consistent, durable running back who can do a little bit of everything. He's going to raise the floor of whatever running back room he winds up in, and Henry Parrish is going to be making a team better this fall.
Now, this was a glowing thing from Alex Dono and Locked On Canes talking about Henry Parrish. When you consider that when a player leaves a school and goes to the other, you naturally get excuses of why that is happening. You honestly cannot trust from the fan base what is going on because of that. Alex Dono said he was a all-around back. He was the leading rusher. He does a little bit of everything well, and that Ole Miss is going to get a really good football player. This is another situation with Henry Parrish Jr. and Jacory Croskey Merritt of trying to fill in the aggregate of Quinshon Judkins. There is one type back that Ole Miss needs to fill, because if you're trying to replace Quinshon Judkins in the aggregate, you need that big back, that tough running back as well. Somebody that is going to do a lot of the dirty work on short yardage and make the 4-minute offense and all of that stuff click. And we've gotten visits over the week from Trent Howland. There's another running back that I can't name at this point that we probably should pay attention to. We will see exactly how that goes. But you can see that Ole Miss is intent on replacing Quinshon Judkins in the aggregate. If you want to think about Moneyball, think about all the Moneyball gifts that Lane Kiffin has put out over the last year. This is an exact like-for-like Moneyball type situation. Ole Miss is trying to replace the production of Quinshon Judkins in the aggregate. And they are going to make a running back room that looks a lot similar to the quarterback room a year ago. It's interesting stuff. Now, there are running backs that are already here. There are running backs that are committed. 2 running backs that I am the most excited for. All of these players come in. What does 2025 look like? 2025 is kind of the Kedrick Reescano, the Akylin Dear, the Logan Diggs year. That's kind of the 3 for 2025. And Ole Miss is working to protect that. They're being very intentional and deliberate with the players that they are recruiting in the transfer portal as to not wreck that. That is supremely important for what Ole Miss can be. Ole Miss is about to go through a major transition after this football season. Major transition. And you have to be willing to understand what is going on and do what's necessary to protect next year's team, just like this year's team. Because I've said multiple times, programs don't exist anymore. It is all the 2024 team, the 2025 team, and you're constantly just doing the best you can. But what Lane Kiffin is doing is working to make the 2024 team as good as it possibly can be. Mentioned replacing Quinshon Judkins in the aggregate, while protecting the 2025 team. And we will talk about that in the next segment because I do think that is relevant. And that replacing in the aggregate, and it has a chance to be really interesting. Jacory, Croskey, Merritt, and Henry Parrish, those are two high-level backs. And if Ole Miss stopped right now, they would have at least an argument for the best running back room in all of the Southeastern Conference. They would at least have an argument right now. And Ole Miss isn't done. Ole Miss is going to get one more. It's going to take three backs. It's going to take three backs to replace the production that Quinshon Judkins did. But it's not going to be replacing $1 million. You're going to be taking the money that Quinshon wanted, the huge amount of money, and you're going to replace that with a rebuilt offensive line, 3 running backs, a tight end, to where your team actually got a lot better. So it's not a all loss type situation. It's pretty interesting indeed. Thanks again for making Locked On Ole Miss your first listen of the day. Ole Miss has gone all in on a running back this year, and we've talked about it pretty consistently over the last 2 weeks. But they may not be done. They're not doing this willy-nilly, though. There is a level of protection at play, too, and we'll explain that next. It's playoff time in the NBA and NHL. Baseball is in full swing, and FanDuel is your place to bet on every single game. Right now, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed. That's $150, win or lose. Bet on everything from slap shots to home runs to slam dunks, all on an app that is safe, secure, and super easy to use. For instance, I went on the app and looked at it. Ole Miss, a yes bet for the 2024 playoff, is at minus 122, which is about a 54% probability of that happening. So that is an interesting thing as well. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make your first bet an automatic win. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. The Locked On NFL Mock Draft is now available. Find the ultimate 6-episode series on the Locked On NFL Draft channel to hear the local Locked On experts who they're picking for every single NFL franchise, with live reactions from college football experts and even the fantasy football angle. The Locked On NFL Mock Draft is now available on the NFL Draft channel on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast. So it's kind of interesting with everything that's going on at the running back position right now. And there's starting to be rumors going around the fan base, people worried about Kedrick Reescano. Before that even starts, I'm not even entertaining that. I have it on the best authority there can be that's bunk. That's just people making rumors to make rumors. There's no reality in them at this moment. So you have a situation where, is Ole Miss going to survive the next 7 days or whatever it is on Kedrick Reescano? Yes, I think so. Akylin Dear is going to be hearing the rumblings of the transfer portal room that's going on right now. So Ole Miss is going to have to deal with that. A couple of days ago, Alabama met with Akylin Dear. Everybody's going to meet with Akylin Dear. He's the best running back in college football. Nobody is going to give up on that. So with that being said, we need to acknowledge the work that Lane Kiffin, Kelvin Bolden, and his whole player personnel staff is doing right now. Ole Miss is putting together a 2024 class of running backs to make their team good, to make their team great, to get them playoff ready, to compete for championships and be as good as they can be. That said, they not only just look for running backs, they didn't take everybody that wants to come. Honestly, there probably is a very big list right now of players that want to attend the University of Mississippi because of NIL, because of winning, because of all of that stuff. Lots of people are trying to get in on Ole Miss at the moment. Ole Miss is being very aggressive, but very selective at the same time. And this is what I mean. Jacory Croskey Merritt, he is at the very tail end of his eligibility. He's a one and done legit. Look at what's going on. He is going to be a one and done. and it's over. You don't have to worry about him affecting Akylin Dear at all, not even a little bit. Henry Parrish Jr., a one and done. He is another player that you do not have to worry about him affecting Akylin Dear or Kedrick Reescano. They have been very deliberate of recruiting those football players. When you look at Logan Diggs, he is going to come back for 2025 and be the thumper. We always talk about that. He is going to be the 2025 thumper. He is going to have that role. So you are looking for somebody, and if you want to pay attention to a back that might end up being the thumper, remember the eligibility thing, because they're not going to do anything that long-term log jams Kedrick Reescano. And Kedrick is going to come in and compete and do all the right things. Okay? I don't think anybody needs to worry about Kedrick at all. He is going to do it. And I even said on, maybe it was Monday's show, maybe it was Tuesday's, but the best possible outcome for Ole Miss fans is Kedrick Reescano getting more and more carries as the 2024 season goes on. That is probably the outcome that everybody should be rooting for. Not because that means that Kedrick is going to stick around or anything like that. You can't be risk averse in this environment. You have to be totally team positive. You need to look at ways that you can improve yourself, help yourself, and you need to find a way to make it happen. That's all that's going to matter. And Kedrick Reescano, I think, has a chance to do all of the stuff that we expect him to do, that we want him to do. He is that talented. He is a former MVP of the Polynesian Bowl, to where he ran for over 100 yards. And you know my opinion on all-star games and running backs that rush for 100 yards. It's hard to do. Offensive lineman doesn't have time to gel. The defensive line, they're usually the best defensive line that the offensive line has gone up in their entire high school career. It is hard for a running back to run for 100 yards. So when you do it, pay attention. That said, Kedrick Reescano hasn't done it. He hasn't done the stuff on the field to justify everybody's hopes, dreams, and aspirations for him. Now, will that happen? Yeah, it can. If he gets his chance on the field, yes, that absolutely could happen. But it hasn't happened to this point. That's the reason they're going through getting all this help to make the 2024 team as good as possible. Kedrick Reescano is going to compete like heck in 2024. He is going to fight to get on the football field. Like I said, if he's as talented as everything that I've heard, I'm not worried about that at all. And I don't think that everybody should be worried about any rumors or anything that go out about Kedrick Reescano going to find greener pastures. I just don't think that's a good use of your energy at this point. And Akylin Dear, I don't think anything like that, because Lane Kiffin and this player personnel department has done what they can to ensure that there's a bunch of one and dones. This is a single shot running back room, if that makes sense. Ulysses Bentley, Jacory, Croskey, Merritt, and Henry Parrish, they're all one and done. They have 1 year left. After that, next season in 2025, which has a chance to look completely different, by the way. Kedrick Reescano, Akylin Dear, Logan Diggs at running back. At quarterback, either Austin Simmons or Walker Howard. The wide receivers of being Aiden Williams. The offense could completely transform. And, anybody that's doubting this offense, anybody that's doubting the Lane Kiffin offense, that do that at your own peril. Just do that at your own peril. But you can see how this team will be built in 2024. Now, Ole Miss has had Trent Howland in for an official visit as the thumper big back. Like I said, there's another running back that's a thumper big back that I was told to pay attention to his name. And I think that's it. Now, if you want to look at it, mentioning the transfer portal, Joe Cryer, a former Ole Miss commit that switched to LSU, a Louisiana kid went to LSU, he entered the transfer portal. Is this a situation to where he moves back to where he was? Or has that bridge been burned? So we'll have to see exactly how that works as well. I think this running back room going to be the best in the Southeastern Conference. When you add with that the best wide receiving unit in the Southeastern Conference, when you add to that potentially the best quarterback, Carson Beck might argue with that in the Southeastern Conference, and the defensive side of the ball, all of the talent that they have over there, you can kind of see where all the expectations lie at the moment. We're still about, 7 days away from having the roster of outgoing players locked in. May 1st, we will be completely locked in of knowing who is leaving. After that, it's going to be focusing on who is coming in. The attitude towards players and everything going on can completely change starting May 1st. It sounds weird, but that is true. Spring practice and all of that, everything was in fear of this spring transfer portal window. When this is done, the next one is after the football season. So that will allow you to really put your nose to the grindstone and get ready to go. Pretty fired up about what can happen there. Thanks again for making Locked On Ole Miss your first listen of the day. Jacory Hobson joined Cam Franklin and committing to the Ole Miss Rebels. We get to know him and the Ole Miss high school recruiting strategy that's kind of just starting to take focus. Guys, I need you all to listen up. This is a huge announcement. I've been tracking the leaderboard every day, keeping my eye on the scores and putting all of my heart in it. And I am super pumped to announce I am finally on top. That's right. Obviously, I'm talking about the hit mobile game Monopoly Go. You've probably heard of it. It's been downloaded over 150 million times. It's a great mobile twist on the classic Monopoly, and you can play it anywhere, anytime. You explore hundreds of Monopoly boards from Vegas to Camelot to the freaking moon, all while raking in a huge fortune. Charge rent on your iconic properties, just like Monopolies. You go after your friends' Monopoly money by pulling bank heist and taking wrecking balls to their landmarks. But my favorite part is the leaderboards, where you can see who's a Monopoly tycoon and who has gone bankrupt. So go get yourself on the charts. Download Monopoly Go, now free on the App Store or at Google Play. Game Time is now an authorized ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball, which makes getting tickets even faster and easier. Prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets to the first pitch. And with killer last-minute deals all in prices, views from your seats, and the lowest price guarantee, Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets. They have seat views to where you can see exactly what you're going to see from the seat in that venue on the app before you buy. Their lowest price guarantee will credit you 110% of the difference if they find the same seat or row for less of a price. And their ticket coverage is basically the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube, and now it's also available on Amazon Fire TV and the free Fire TV channels app. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows that cover every single league. Find Locked On Sports Today, now available in the free Fire TV channels app. Be part of history. So we've been so focused on the transfer portal over the last couple of weeks that high school recruiting has kind of slipped a little bit. And Ole Miss got a commitment from Jacory Hobson. He is a defensive back linebacker. He's kind of that star or husky type position that where he's going to end up. He probably comps favorably to Tony Connor. If you're looking at what type of a player Jacory Hobson is, it is that Tony Connor type of football player. If you look at his rankings online, he's in the top 50 on every site, or the top list on every site. He's a consensus 4-star. ESPN has him at 129. Rivals has him at 120. 247 has him at 246. Hey, it's right before the end. And On3 has him at 257. He's another player out of Lake Cormorant. Cam Franklin was there as well. There's obviously an end there. We'll have to see if Jacory Hobson ends up in Orlando. Everybody knows how I like the Under Armour All-American game. I cover it each and every single year. I like going through the media days and the interviews and all that, and showing up for the actual practices. It's a lot of fun. When you look at the highlights of this player, the first thing you notice is he can really play. He is an athletic guy that is honestly to be feared by everybody on their other team. Now, Lake Cormorant, it makes you wonder a little bit. Whenever you have him on that side and you had Cam Franklin as well, how much moving the ball actually got done because of what they can do. Now, Pete Golding is going to take this guy, essentially dress him up, and put him in the right development situation to be an elite player. Because we talk about Pete Golding. Pete Golding on the defensive line, that's kind of where he makes his bones. Going back to like Marcus Davenport, there's always seemingly a defensive lineman that makes some hay under Pete Golding. But Pete Golding had the forethought to bring in Zach Arnett to come help with the linebacker unit. And he is a linebacker whisperer. He'd made Jet Johnson and Buki Watson seem like they were better than they actually were because of how he schemed it up. He does a lot of the stuff mentally that Joey Dunn taught. If you go back to the Ole Miss 1993 defense that had Tim Bowens and Norman Hand and Cassius Beware and Abdul Jackson, Dwayne Dotson, and all those guys, a lot of the same stuff is done by Zach Arnett. That Joey Dunn system kind of ended up at San Diego State, and that is where it grew up. And on the back end of the defense is Brian Brown, B. Brown, the co-defensive coordinator with Pete Golding. He came down there from being the defensive coordinator at Cincinnati. Good player. He is known for being a ball hawk. So he's the one that I think when this is all said and done, he is the coach that is going to have his hands on Jacory Hobson. And that's a good thing. That is a good thing because the athletic ability that Hobson has is pretty much second to none. It is really good. I am dead serious when I say he compares to Tony Connor, especially in the stylistic way that he plays. Now, Connor was a 5-star. Still a good player, but there is a little bit of gap. But stylistically, they play a lot the same way. So we'll see exactly how that goes. I'm pretty fired up about it. Also, thank you to everybody for, humoring me and letting me go see the Tigers and the Tampa Bay Rays and what that did here. I do appreciate that. And it was a ton of fun. Seeing Tarek Skubal absolutely deal at a major league level is something that it's a type of dominance you only see in high school when there's a 95-mile-an-hour pitcher on the mound for the other team, honestly. So thank you very much for that. And thank you for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen of the day. We have the most perspective surrounding Ole Miss sports, and I think that's one of the many reasons we're currently the number one Ole Miss podcast. And thank you for that. For your second listen, go to Locked On Sports Today. Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows that cover each and every single league. Find Locked On Sports Today, now available on the free Fire TV Channels app. For those of you on YouTube, we'll send you there right now. Howdy toddy, everyone.